think all of us that went back together and everything, it just made us all closer. It's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
family now.
Some veterans of Vietnam left that country never wanting to return. Too much loss, too much pain, too many bad memories. But 5 years ago, our cameras followed a group of almost 20 East Tennessee veterans on a return trip to Vietnam to face some ghosts.
Well, it's from the other side for sure.
In 2017, from backwater channels in the Mekong Delta to bustling streets of Ho Chi Minh City.
I don't recognize much of anything at all, however. It's changed, obviously, a whole lot in the 50 years plus since I've been here. But there are a few landmarks that I have recognized.
We documented the whirlwind journey for almost 24 East Tennessee veterans on a return trip to Vietnam. Can you believe it's been 5 years?
No. Don't seem like it.
Inside VFW Memorial Post 5154 in Blount County, a small group of veterans gathered to reflect on that journey 5 years later.
Fortunately, in my case, I didn't see a lot of the junk these guys had to live through.
Men like Navy veteran Art Blank, who served in Vietnam during 1970 to 71. What was that trip for you like?
I was actually dumbfounded because considering what those poor folks went through and the fact that they still regard Americans so highly, I was just surprised, and I still am when I think about it. Pleasantly so.
And the people, you can't say too much for them. They were really good to us. They'd shake your hand and holler at you, point at you, and I really enjoyed it.
Johnny Hurst was a soldier serving in Vietnam in 1967 and 68. The avid photographer guesses he took upwards of 500 snapshots during the 10-day return trip to Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I like the market downtown there in Saigon. I enjoyed that. It's similar to a flea market, I guess you would call it, but they had everything in there, and it was huge. And I liked the Mekong Delta, too. I liked it. It was a good trip down there.
Serving in the Mekong Delta in his early 20s, Navy man Clifford Willis was a river rat. He spent portions of 1965, 66, 67, and 68 in Vietnam. 50 years later, he made the return trip in his mid-70s.
It's been 48 years, and I've changed a lot more than the river has. As far as trips go, it rates right at the top, I think mostly because of the guys here, the whole group. Being able to do it with a group like that was very meaningful. Learn their experiences during the war, where they were and what they did.
Raise your hand if you would go back. Everybody would. No hesitation.
I think all of us that went back together and everything, it just made us all closer. It's just family now.
And Johnny Hurst has this message for fellow veterans of the war in Vietnam.
I think all the veterans should make a trip over there. The ones that's having problems, yeah.
That would help them, you think?
I think so. It did. It helped me a lot, I know that. And these guys here, it helped them. So, yeah, I think they all will make a trip.
At VFW Post 5154 in Blount County, we recently reconnected with a group of veterans. WBIR followed them on a return journey to Vietnam 5 years ago to face some ghosts.
You called it facing ghosts. I call it killing ghosts. It doesn't matter how long it's been, and you go back, it's going to have an effect on you.
These veterans are part of a group from East Tennessee who made a return trip to Vietnam 5 years ago and almost 50 years after their war service. Can you believe it's been 5 years?
No. Don't seem like it.
We reconnected with a small group, including 3 men, all motivated by a specific reason for their return.
Gary Cates, proud Marine.
What?
With the Vietnam, served in Vietnam 67 through 69.
Bill Bathel with the Vietnam in 68, 69.
I'm Ron Kirby. I served in the Army for 32 years. I'm a 3-star general.
Trip troublemaker-in-chief Ron Kirby also organized the shared journey back to Vietnam.
Ron Kirby, 3 years in the U.S. Army from 67 to 70, served in Vietnam in 67 to 68.
Always the first to joke with fellow veterans. 5 years ago, in a cab in Ho Chi Minh City, this combat wounded veteran was serious and reflective.
It's a friendship gesture over the last 49 years of saying, you know, you were doing your thing, I was doing my thing, we were both working for our government.
After one jungle firefight, this American soldier pulled a battle flag off the rifle of a fallen Viet Cong soldier. 5 decades later, on this return trip, he wanted to hand that flag back to his one-time enemy. That chance came at a secret meeting in a private apartment in the city once known as Saigon. The American soldier met face-to-face with a soldier from the other side.
Tell him I'm very humbled that he would have us in his home.
After tea and fruit, the two formed a quick bond. Following a nod from his interpreters, out came the battle flag and a shared moment of connection between former foes.
That was a pretty powerful moment.
For me, it was, yes. It was very powerful. It, you know, facing an enemy that, and I consider him a brother now. Our enemy, they were fighting for something they believed in too. And it starts coming in perspective when you get a little older and, you know, start thinking a little bit more.
It's hard to explain. Everything's grown up. I mean, trees and...
Memories of his war service came flooding back for Bill Batho on a tour of Cu Chi, a rural piece of jungle that was home away from home during the war.
That brought back a lot of memories, because I'd pounded the ground through them rubber plantations. I don't know, I got PTSD pretty bad. You know, I get pretty angry real quick, and I don't really mean to, but it just pops out, you know.
I think he's more nervous than he's letting on. I think he's had a little more trouble than he's willing to admit.
The trip stirred fresh anxiety for this soldier. He didn't like the amusement park feel of this tour, but that settled through the calming presence of his wife and reassurance from fellow veterans on the trip.
So would you say that trip was therapeutic for you?
It was good. It was a good deal, but I would have never did it by on my own.
Marine veteran Gary Kuntz and his wife made fast friends on the hunt for his old base outside Da Nang.
Also, Vicki wrote a children's book, and we gave it to a little 5-year-old Vietnamese. He didn't speak a bit of English. He loved that book.
How important was it for you to have Vicki with you on that trip?
It was really important. I wanted her to see what I went through and how things were back then. So it's hard on her, but I appreciate her going.
Finding his old base proved impossible. The American military buried it in bombs near the end of the war, and 50 years later, nothing looked familiar.
I knew it was 5 miles south of DMZ. It's Quang Tri. We drove back and forth, never could find it. And I was really disappointed over that. Besides that, everything was great.
Raise your hand if you would go back. Everybody would. No hesitation.
And you think, my Lord, it's been 50 years. Are you not over it yet? But it does. Yeah, it does. I've always felt like it's been a brotherhood and a sisterhood going back.
Hơn 70 rồi.
Oh, good.
Hơn 70.
I hope it was very therapeutic. I think it was for, I think 100% of the people that went back.
A veteran we followed back to Vietnam in 2017 found the trip triggered an immediate impact. He made new friends and found a new peace. 5 years later, we reconnect and learn that war veteran is facing a new fight.
The kids loved us.
The kids loved you.
Yeah.
Watching video of himself from 5 years ago inside an overseas orphanage triggers fond memories for Vietnam veteran Frank Vollmer.
What stands out to you about those children?
The children themselves were very independent, and they accepted us as friends with no hesitation at all.
The first time Frank set foot in Vietnam, his commercial jet landed in the middle of a firefight.
Smoke was coming up around the perimeter, and we could see the napalm going off. Yeah, it was an eye-opener, and, you know, all of a sudden it became very real. It wasn't on a newscast anymore.
Before making a return journey in 2017, Frank explained his two main motivations for going back 50 years after his war service.
I'd like to try to get some peace of mind.
Off duty, Frank used to visit an orphanage in Da Nang. He helped build playground equipment and handed out clothing sent from the States by family members. But during a nighttime attack on his airbase, that orphanage was also bombed, and Frank witnessed the aftermath.
And we couldn't get out there for a while. And when we did, we had learned that there were casualties with the kids and all that.
The death of Dwayne Heiser in Vietnam was the reason Frank volunteered for combat duty. The childhood friends grew up together in Buffalo, New York. They joined the service together. But after Dwayne was killed, when Frank went to pay his respects to the family, its patriarch blamed Frank for getting Dwayne into the Army and eventually for the death of his friend.
He's yelling at me to get off their porch, that it was my fault Dwayne was killed. That hurt.
Post-traumatic stress from the loss of his friend, followed by the deaths of those children, haunted Frank for decades.
I'm on medications morning and night. I still get counseled at least once a month.
On his return trip to Vietnam, Frank struck up a new, lasting friendship with a new orphanage in Da Nang.
And I overheard you having your good night's sleep. First time in how long?
Probably over 20 years.
Wow.
And on a mountain overlooking his old air base, he formed a new bond with fellow veterans, helping him come to terms with the loss of his childhood friend.
Way to go, brother. We made it out of here.
Was it a healing trip for you, Frank?
Yes.
You mentioned before the trip that you'd suffered PTSD and you'd been taking medication for that.
Yes.
Did that continue after the trip?
It did on a lesser, lower level basis.
Do you still suffer from PTSD?
Yes, I do.
How does it manifest itself? What happens? Do you have nightmares?
I have nightmares, but it's to a lesser extent.
It didn't sound like you were sleeping very well before the trip. It sounds like you slept really well after that trip.
That's true.
Why do you think that is?
I think we made peace with each other as far as soldier to soldier, and also from enemy to actually friend or neighbor.
During a recent conversation, Frank openly shared the new health fights he is facing. An accident took his eye. He's now in a wheelchair, and at age 75, his memories are fading.
Parts of the trip have melted away.
Do you suffer from a little dementia?
I think so.
When I say the name Dwayne, what comes to your mind?
I don't know.
With some prompting, memories of his old friend return.
Dwayne was killed in Vietnam.
Yes.
Where was he from?
He was from North Buffalo.
You grew up together?
Yes.
Still miss him?
Yeah.
Facing ghosts is what motivated Frank Vollmer to return to Vietnam.
What did the trip back mean to you?
Well, a trip back meant that we met new friends from our travels, as well as meeting new veterans who later became close friends.
One footnote on our trip, we want to recognize the passing of Howard Shouty in November of 2020. A chance encounter in a hotel lobby gave this veteran a goosebump moment.
In the center of this city in Vietnam, with close to 9 million people, two strangers found a close connection dating back decades.
I think it's just the spirit of my dad.
East Tennessee veteran Howard Shouty traveled 9,000 miles to find a link to his wartime past in Vietnam. It happened by chance when a family asked him to snap a few photographs inside a hotel lobby.
I asked him, is it your first time here in Vietnam? He said, no, actually it's the second time, and it's been like 40 years?
51 years.
51 years. And I said that, oh, my dad is a pilot, and he's in the Air Force for the South Vietnam. And that's how the conversation started.
I asked her if it was a helicopter or an airplane.
Yes.
And she said, helicopter.
The simple revelation was nothing short of stunning. Her father trained to become a pilot in the United States. At the same time, Howard served as a flight school instructor for those young pilots.
It's a shock, it's just, I don't know what to say.
But this moment here brings back different things I did with the pilots that came over that wanted to learn the helicopter.
I'm so happy, if it is, you are my dad instructor, that is, all I can say is just, I think that my dad was telling us.
Maybe.
To me.
At age 73, Howard can still sketch the detailed drawings he used to train Vietnamese troops on the mechanics of helicopters. Most students had just 30 days of training in English, and most arrived knowing only how to ride a bike. Howard taught them to fly in 1 month. It was training that served this Vietnamese pilot until his last day on duty.
He flew in and rescued the first batch of people out, and then the second time he flew in, he got shot.
Mei Lee was 5 years old when her father's helicopter was shot from the sky trying to rescue villagers in the path of fighting during the Vietnam War.
I think that my dad is a hero.
Howard took a close look at this photograph, but can't say for certain if it is indeed one of his students. The possibility exists, and the proof may come.
I'm going to call my mom.
But the fact these two randomly found each other in a hotel lobby in Ho Chi Minh City, that connection alone for this Vietnam veteran made his return trip.
Oh, I think that she's going to be very shocked, and she's going to be very happy.